So, well, thanks for many of the questions. I would very much agree in terms of this question about who's best suited to do this. Well, I manage quite a few researchers, and I can tell you which ones can do it and which ones can't. And it's mostly because those who can't is because they don't want to. They've decided that's not what they want to do. They've decided they hate it. I could force them and give them a lot of training, but yeah, if they're not interested, it's going to be really a hard one to be getting to a good outcome. And I think I have come to appreciate that not everyone in my team will want to do this. So I just need to make sure that in each sub-team I have enough people want to do it and let the other colleagues off the hook. But if you're willing to do it, obviously the best place to learn is by actually working with activists. I mean, I used to do capacity building for activists actually in Oxfam, Australia. And the best way to do it is a pool, right? It's a political pool. You get someone in the right group that already does it and they'll learn the tricks much quicker. And if you do a formal training, you can still do a formal training, and there are pretty good ones out there. There's one, I think, from on the Open University done by Oxfam, which is pretty good. But I say by the fastest is probably being pulled into a group that already does that. Is what Leda was talking about, you know, getting the scientists into the real world. If you send the scientists to a COP, they will learn a lot within that 2 weeks, probably much faster than through a course. In terms of concrete results, I very much agree that obviously once you can show concrete results, it's easier. But that poses a real big problem when we're talking about systemic change, because I think there are very few people who can boast having concrete results on that. And therefore, I think it's also about, you know, where do we put legitimacy and what sort of risk are we willing to take with actually live testing things that have yet no precedent. And I think that's what we're meant to do right now. And that's obviously very uncomfortable. And it's also very uncomfortable, as you said, Leda, different NGOs have different constituencies. And often NGOs are actually, well, because they're accountable to constituencies, they're also political prisoners of their constituencies. If your constituency, and here I take absolutely no position, has decided they hate GMOs, then if you work with a researcher that has a more, you know, agnostic approach to GMOs, at the moment where you need to disseminate the outcomes, the person in the NGO will face a real big problem in terms of its contingency. So I think for the scientists to also understand where will be the constraints linked with that NGO and where it makes sense that the scientists actually say something. They might be sharing a strategy, but they might not be sharing messages, because it might be impossible to say the same message as the NGO and the scientists. And it might actually reduce the legitimacy of both the activists and the scientists. So it's really understanding that power game and where are constraints that I think is really important. And then what you were saying, Leda, about the timing of research versus the political agenda. You need to have something much more flexible. You shouldn't be putting so much emphasis on competition. Saying that everything needs to be transnational is lovely, but it just means that about 5 universities in the world can actually lead H2020, so you don't have diversity. So to me, if we want to bring about different outcomes and if you want to give more flexibility to researchers, you need to change that. And what's behind all those methodologies is to prevent fraud. If preventing fraud means that we're not getting anything useful to you know, save humanity from the biggest challenge, I think we should just be confronting that, yes, there might be a bit more fraud if there's more flexibility, but that's a small side effect compared with what we're trying to get. Thanks.